And the enzymes are mainly digestive enzymes that help us to digest our food better, but also to help us in the metabolism. And one of them is protease, amylase, lipase, and cellulase, which are just the regular 4 enzymes that are used for our digestive system. And then herbs are many. It depends on whom to go to, where to look for, but I particularly use ginkgo biloba as one of my main herbs that I use for children with hyperactivity to feed the brain. Garlic. I'm using now a wonderful herb that is called cat's claw that help to detoxify mainly the bowel and also the liver.
When you detoxify, I mean, that's got a really interesting specific definition today. For example, liver detoxification, there are actually laboratory tests now that can measure different phases of detoxification. And very interestingly, when you detoxify, you create free radicals, a whole bunch of them. And guess what? Nutrients are used up. Phytochemicals are used up that function as antioxidant. If you don't constantly replenish them during a detoxification phase, it can actually create tissue damage, can damage you, can cause disease. So it's extremely important that the vitamin E, the mixed carotenoids, the vitamin C, the selenium. I love curcumin from turmeric, excellent anti-inflammatory. I like the pycnogenols, which I like grapeseed pycnogenol, outstanding, powerful antioxidants. I like glutamine that I use to reverse a leaky gut, also increases liver glutathione levels. Glutathione becomes an enzyme system that's probably the single most powerful antioxidant system in the human body.
Juicing will give you the concentrated forms of phytonutrients, phytochemicals, minerals that are lacking in the diet, minerals that are lacking in an immune-compromised state, and it will enhance the immune system much further than that.
A regular exercise program is really important for keeping allergies at a minimal level. The ability to detoxify the body from regular exercise and sweating is really important. The detoxification process, in my mind, is probably one of the key therapies for helping people rid themselves of allergies rather than just treat their allergic symptoms.
I found that allergies are really connected to a lot of the heavy metals, the toxins that are within the body. So whether it's through the water that the children are drinking or through the food that they're eating, this creates a big problem towards a lot of allergies.
Chelation therapy is an option for some people that have toxic heavy metals that have been stored within the lymph system, the circulatory system, the arterial walls, the organs, and detoxification through the diet sometimes is not enough when there is a heavy metal toxicity, so the choice of chelation therapy is an option. It is when a patient comes into the office and a substance called EDTA is dripped into the vein over a slow 4-hour period along with other nutrients like calcium, magnesium. It acts as a clawing agent, it attaches on to the heavy metals and carries it out through the kidneys.
There are many new advances in both the treatment and research of allergens.
One other aspect of correcting allergy problems would be to be tested for what's called a serial endpoint dilution. This is a method of medical science whereby intradermal antigens are injected on the arm usually, and we get a reactivity to antigens, and we dilute the antigen to a point where we get what's called a shut-off dose. This shut-off dose is then given to the patient as a treatment, which the patient can administer him or herself, which over a period of months will shut off the allergy symptomatology. This is part of contemporary allergy. It is not part of all allergy in America today. It is only practiced by a handful, maybe 10% of all allergists.
Using the inhalant immunotherapy or allergy shots that I use in my office, we spend more time testing, so not only do we find what they're allergic to, we find the precise dose that is their dose for treatment, and therefore we can frequently start at a higher and yet safer and well-tolerated dose, and therefore when we desensitize them and make them less allergic, we will see effects in about 1 to 2 months, whereas in the more traditional types of immunotherapy, you start at such a low dose, it takes so long to build up that you might not see effects for 6, 12, or even 18 months.
Food allergy research is just a red-hot area of investigation throughout the world, and I'm constantly surprised, maybe even pleased, to frequently come across new views of disease entities that you wouldn't think would be remotely associated with food allergy. For example, insulin-dependent diabetes is now being seriously discussed and researched in peer-reviewed international journals. A lot of researchers are suspecting that the early exposure, premature exposure to whole food before the age of 4 to 6 months, and genetically predisposed babies who are predisposed to developing insulin-dependent diabetes, that this early exposure can actually provoke the beginning of the disease process that will 6, 7, 8 years later result in insulin-dependent diabetes. And if we're talking about in the United States 1 million or 2 kids, and that the majority of them could actually prevent the occurrence of insulin-dependent diabetes by avoiding foods at an early age, that's a remarkable breakthrough. One other one that comes to mind immediately is epilepsy. It was observed back in the 1920s that when people fasted, their seizures got better, often disappeared, and then they ignored it for about 70 years. Within the last 5 or 10 years, there's been studies, in particular Dr. Egger out of London Medical School in England has done a study involving epileptic kids, and he found, this is really interesting, that the children who had seizures, epileptic seizures of all different kinds, who also had migraine headaches at the same time, about 75 to 80% of those kids could actually have a dramatic improvement, including complete cessation of epileptic seizures by eliminating allergic foods from their diet, even to the point that 19 of the kids that were studied could completely get off medication, where before the medication was barely controlling the seizures. That's extraordinarily exciting.
In terms of some of my more complex allergy patients, I have been using a treatment that comes from Europe, and I've been using it for about 6 years now. It was developed in Europe, in England, by Dr. Len McEwen, and this was after about 30 years of research. And it's an ingenious technique. It's called EPD, or enzyme potentiated desensitization. And what it consists of is using very small amounts of antigens, whether they be food, inhalants, chemicals, even some type of bacteria, coupled with an enzyme, which is really ubiquitous enzyme in all our cells, called beta-glucuronidase. Beta-glucuronidase acts somewhat like a lymphokine, which potentiates the immune system response to these very low and very safe doses of these antigens. What I love about EPD is that you don't have to give one here and one there. The antigen mixtures are very inclusive, so when you give the food mix, it covers the whole range of foods because it includes all the families of foods. When you give the inhalants, it's the same way, and chemicals is the same way. And I've found over the years, dealing with allergies since I've been in practice now for 14 years, that inhalants were always easy, but foods and chemicals were more difficult to deal with various types of what we call immunotherapy or allergy treatments. And the EPD has been a real advance in terms of patients with multiple allergies.
Our researchers at the University of Texas, this goes all the way back to Roger Williams, who was an eminent physician and nutritionist, and was developed in the Clayton Foundation for Biochemical Research. And that they developed a media that media means a series, something that you can provide the nutrients but outside your body, and they draw your blood out of your arm and get your own white cells and the things that are the nearest to protecting you and your immune system as possible, and they culture those on that media, and they actually grow them for several days, and then they expose them to about 550 different nutrient combinations in a computer,